Welcome to Friday's edition of Big Blue Kickoff Live, presented by Cadillac, the official luxury vehicle of the New York Football Giants. So glad you could be with us on this glorious day in North Jersey. I'm Dottino and Matt Citak, and we'll be here for the next hour to talk New York Giants football with you. OTA day number 6. The practice has already been completed. John and I did a quick recap for you. It's already up on Twitter and your social platforms. Matt and I will also go through some of what we saw this morning. And then we're going to ask another question. We had a question for you the other day. We asked about the comeback player of the year for each of the NFC East teams, and that, of course, came off of a PFF article that came out about a week or so ago. But today, if you were with us the other day, you know we kind of jumbled and confused and mixed up the meanings of that question. We're going to separate it now into part 2 and ask for, in the NFC East, by the way, only the NFC East, we're going to ask for your breakout player of the year, which is a little different than the comeback player because the comeback player had to do something prior to this season and then bounce back. So breakout player could be a guy who is just a rookie, could be a guy who's played a couple of seasons and hasn't done a whole lot. Could be any of those kinds of guys to fit the criteria. But breakout player of the year for the NFC East. But first up, I want to make sure you guys know if you're not listening to Big Blue Kickoff Live on its live platform, you can always get an archive of the show on our entire podcast network, on the Giants mobile app, podcast platforms everywhere, and at giants.com/podcasts. Matt, it was a good day for the defense, particularly, especially the first 3/4 of the practice earlier this morning. It was really nice to be outside. Weather is absolutely perfect. A little windy. Little windy. May have had a little bit of an impact on the practice today. I thought for me, and again, we will have our own observations here, and you may have something different than John and I thought. The defensive backs in particular, the secondary, and the young guys did very, very well today in terms of anticipating passes, closing on passes, getting hands on the ball. There were at least, in the early portion, a half a dozen pass breakups, and I made notations. Phillips, Hawkins, Mills, Pinnock, and Nubin all had passes defensed. It was good to see the young defensive backs get involved in those plays.
Yeah, definitely. And we saw what seemed like the first interception in at least a couple practices from Deonte Banks.
Well, Holmes had one the previous day.
Okay. Missed that one, but
okay.
It was a play where Kayvon got a little pressure, quarterback threw it, and Deonte Banks had a interception, and that's obviously what we hope to see throughout the season. But yeah, I agree. I had Jalen Mills down for I think two or three pass breakups. Nubin got one, as you said. Pinnock had one or two. The defensive McLeod, yeah.
I mean, the list goes on and on.
They really did get their hands on the football today, which was great to see. The other observation I saw from a defensive standpoint was Brian Burns just looks so impressive every time I see him out there on the field. And I know, obviously, we're in OTAs. There's no contact at practice yet, so it's tough to get a full read.
I feel bad for the offensive linemen in these drills because they have no chance.
No chance. I mean, you have Burns coming from one side, Kayvon coming from the other, Dex up the middle. It's going to be tough for any offensive line this entire season facing that defensive front. But just today, I mean, this has been a similar theme that at least I've noticed almost every day out there the last 2 weeks now, is Burns seems to find his way into the backfield. It seems like every other play. There was one play today where he did a double move, got right by the lineman, and was literally in the quarterback's face in less than 2 seconds. The quarterback had no chance to complete a pass because Burns was just in his face.
Was that the one where he went right around Andrew Thomas?
No, I don't believe.
There was one he went around. He got around Thomas pretty quickly, and I'll be honest with you. Again, it looks really, really impressive, but then you remind yourself that Thomas can't hit him.
Yeah, that's the thing. The linemen aren't, neither one, the offensive or defensive linemen, they're not getting hands on each other. So that's why that's a bit of a caveat saying, take it with a little bit of grain of salt. But just the thing I noticed from Burns is just the explosiveness. As soon as the ball is hiked, the explosiveness right off of the line of scrimmage, he's going to be in the backfield, the offensive backfield constantly this season. If he can stay healthy, him and Kayvon, I truly believe will be, if they stay healthy, end up being one of the top,
duos.
One of the top edge rusher duos in the entire NFL.
Well, I think the Giants, when they made the deal for Burns and then gave him a very lucrative extension, they're of the belief that there's a lot more upside there than what we've already seen. Now, he's gone to the Pro Bowl and he's had double-digit sacks, but he's played on a team that has had a good, respectable defense at times, but also had a not-so-good defense at times, where he was, for some of his career in Carolina, the lone pass rushing threat, where he was responsible basically to get after the quarterback. Look, we know there's nobody else there, and the other team's going to concentrate on you, but you know what? You're the only guy who can do it, so just try. So that certainly hampered his production because he didn't have a Thibodeau, for most of his career on the other side of the ball. And then the other part of it is, too, because he was required to produce most of their pass rush, I don't want to say he was told not to play the run, but can you blame the guy when he's responsible for the heat on the quarterback if he wasn't playing the run as effectively as he could? Because he knew that he was carrying the weight of the pass rush on his shoulders. I think the Giants believe, I really do believe this, they think he, like Thibodeau, has the ability to be an absolutely ferocious impact player on both counts, pass rush and against the run.
Yeah, I mean, you don't give someone at that position as big of a contract as he reportedly got unless you think that he's going to be out there every down, and not only be out there, but dominate every time he's out in the field.
He's got that potential.
No matter the down, first, second, third, passing situation, rushing situation, it doesn't matter. If you pay someone that much money, you expect them to be on the field just about almost every snap.
Exactly.
No matter the situation. So, yeah, I agree with you. And you're right that when he was in Carolina, he had some seasons through the first, 5 years of his career where he was joined by another talented pass rusher. Like, he did have one season with Hassan Reddick.
Yeah.
But just only one season.
Like I said, a portion. That's it.
Derek Brown, who is, I think, one of the top up-and-coming interior linemen.
Very solid player.
Has also been there a couple years, but I feel like it's really been the last year or two where he's really started to become the Derek Brown that we now, think of him as. The beginning of his career, I feel like it was off to a slightly or slower start. So this is definitely the most talented defensive line that Brian Burns will have played with.
Mm-hmm. He has said as much.
By far.
He has said as much, too.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's not even remotely close. I mean, obviously we know how good Dexter Lawrence is. He's, with Aaron Donald now retired, right up there with Chris Jones in the conversation for the top interior lineman in the entire NFL.
Big Dex had a pass batted down at the line today, too.
Oh, yeah.
And he let him know about it. You see a little wiggle after he did it?
He doesn't give up any opportunity to
No, that wasn't an earthquake, folks. That was Dexter celebrating his pass defense, okay?
But, yeah, he's definitely never played with as talented of an interior pass rusher as Dexter Lawrence by a wide margin. And the Giants are hoping that Kayvon could take a big step this year, and that, I think, played a part in why they went out to acquire Brian Burns. I mean, we all know that the 2 Super Bowls the Giants have won in the last 15 years or 17 years
pass rush
was because of the pass rush. The pass rush dominated. Obviously, of course, you had the Tyreek catch, the Manningham catch, Eli playing like a legend in the postseason. But the Giants aren't in those situations, aren't even in the playoffs, if it's not for the dominant defense that they had. So it seems like the acquisitions, especially the acquisition of Brian Burns, was made to sort of at least attempt to replicate that defense that dominated here for years.
All right, so make it clear today, and I don't think I'm giving away anything here because that I'm not allowed to. Daniel Jones, as Coach Dable has said, does not do everything in every practice.
Yeah.
Okay? They are pacing him, so Daniel Jones did not throw with the team drills today. Okay? I want to make that clear just in case you guys are wondering, oh, gee, the defense had such a good day. Secondary had a good day. well, maybe Daniel Jones didn't. Not the case. Daniel Jones was working with the trainers for most of the day, did a whole bunch of throws with the receivers and stuff, but was not part of the team drills today. This was one of those peel-back days, if you will, for him. Load maintenance? We want to call it load maintenance?
Yeah, I mean, let's not
That's
forget.
fair, right?
He's not that far removed from surgery for a torn ACL. You can't no one can expect him to be out there every single rep.
So let me just put that out of your minds in case you were curious about Daniel Jones. Yeah. This was not one of his full practice days that he is going to get during the offseason. Now, there were some really good offensive plays, and the play of the day, okay, it was by far the play of the day. I call it the Michael Jackson play because Jalen Hyatt, left corner of the end zone, went up with that receiver's glove and made a one-handed, spectacular, reaching, stretching out stab of a touchdown pass. It was sweet.
Oh, it was so sweet. It was the uproar that I heard from the sideline after that play was the loudest I've heard since OTAs began.
Yeah.
I mean, it was a good throw, but it was a downright impressive catch by
from Tommy DeVito, by the way.
From Tommy DeVito, yep. It was a great catch. And one thing I noticed on the sideline, which I know it was reported yesterday, Steve Smith, the former NFL wide receiver, plenty of success, was at practice working with the receivers. He was here again today. Coach Dable said that he would be here for a couple of days.
The Panthers-Ravens Steve Smith,
yes,
not the Giants
Steve Smith.
In case there's confusion.
About 2 minutes after that Jalen Hyatt catch, I'm standing there, and Joe Shane is about maybe 15 feet away from me, and Steve Smith comes up to him and was basically like, "You see that catch in the end zone?" Like, I showed him that, or something along those lines, which was just great to see. And I mean, we don't have to get too much into Steve Smith being here. I'm sure you guys talked about it yesterday, but it's for such a legendary NFL wide receiver who has no affiliation to the Giants to come here and work with some of the young.
Shane and he have affiliation from Carolina.
Yeah. I just meant with the organization.
Yeah, correct.
But yeah, it's great to see yesterday's practice, today's practice. He's just focused with these wide receivers, giving them tiny little pointers that, as we saw on that Jalen Hyatt catch, they actually, the players are listening to his instructions, his guidance, and it's paying off. And that's just great to see.
Few other notes offensively. Bryce Ford Wheaton caught a couple of touchdown passes in the red zone, one from Locke, one from Rourke. Couple of touchdown passes by Theo Johnson that were hauled in by Theo. One was a laser beam with tight coverage in the left corner of the end zone on a throw by Drew Locke.
Yeah, that was another very strong play. And Theo Johnson's actually the other offensive player I was hoping to talk about a bit for today. Mm-hmm. He had numerous catches in today's practice during the team drills. That touchdown catch, he had another great sideline catch for a first down a little bit later in practice. The beginning of team drills, he had a really nice catch on the sideline. We've spoken in the past, since the Giants drafted Theo Johnson, that I don't want to call him a project because he did enjoy some success at Penn State, but the Giants drafted him because of his athleticism.
He's a projection.
Yes, exactly. He's going to need to develop in order to become a good or great tight end. And obviously he's only, been with the team for a month now, but the strides that I've seen him make already has been impressive. I mean, he might be the rookie that I'm just most excited to see out on the field this season, because the guys that were taking
more so than Neighbors.
Well, I just, yes, only because I already just have somewhat high expectations.
Okay, so the bar's been set with him. That's the problem.
Exactly. The bar's been set for him, for Nubin as well. I mean, I think Nubin is going to become one of the leaders on the defense very quickly.
Seems like it.
And, we've seen flashes from Drew Phillips as well, but Theo Johnson, even after the draft, was one of the guys I was most excited about just because of how just purely athletic he is. He's one of the most athletic tight ends to come into the NFL in the last 35 years. Well, his RAS was ranked 9th out of nearly 1,900 tight ends since 1987, I believe.
Now, that's the thing, because when Evan Ingram came here, we were told, when Shockey came here, he's going to be part of the new breed of the tight ends. And then when Ingram came here, he was going to be new breed 2.0 of the receiving tight ends. And we get all of that. But yet the scientific ratings for Theo Johnson at Penn State, absolutely incredible. And because of his restrained usage, is that a fair term?
Yeah, that's fair.
Restrained usage with the Nittany Lions, he did not get as much exposure or as much ink or as much pop as he probably should have. And the Giants were really thrilled to get him. And right now, I think you're right in that of all the rookies on the team, he's the one who may make the biggest jump from his draft rating to his rookie production. I agree with that.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, let's not forget, it was only a couple years ago that the Giants drafted Daniel Bellinger in the 4th round, and who's obviously still on the team, still looking good out there. But when the Giants drafted him, everyone made the connection of, oh, look what Brian Dable was able to do with Dawson Knox in Buffalo, who was another, early day 3 pick that Dable helped transform into the Dawson Knox that we know now, who was, a good starting tight end.
Sure.
They have Dalton Kincaid as well. But regardless, that I'm expecting that's like, I guess we're not seeing that same level of hype around Theo Johnson as I guess we saw from the Daniel Bellinger hype 2 years ago. But I don't really understand it because with the athleticism we know Theo Johnson has, his limited production at college, but that's, as you said, it's because they just didn't use him as much. I mean, we've spoken about it at length before that in college, it seems like every program uses their tight ends differently.
Well, even Bellinger at San Diego State had told us, they did not use him as much of a receiver as he believed he could be. But this Theo Johnson's in a different category.
He is. I mean, you see the athleticism every time he's running around.
And when we say athleticism, I want to be a little more specific. He's fluid, okay? Yep. He's very, very fluid. He's very agile, okay? And then on top of that, he's deceptively fast.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
And put those 3 things together, that equals his athleticism score. That's why his RAS was nuts. In any event, that's what we saw from practice today. Our phone number is 201-939-4513. Our question of the day is, who are your breakout players for each of the NFC East teams for the 2024 season? We'll get to those in just a bit. Phone lines are open if you guys want to give us a call. We remind you the Giants Huddle podcast is up on all of your favorite podcast platforms. You can go to giants.com/podcasts. Don't forget Apple Podcast also has it there. You can leave a 5-star review and let everybody know you love the program. All kinds of interviews and long-form chats with people in the know and people from the Giants as well as their history. You got the opportunity to get Giants season tickets for the 2024 season. Memberships are available. To learn more about exclusive member benefits, visit giants.com/tickets. Limited inventory, of course, is available. The stadium is only so big. It doesn't grow as the demand for tickets grow, okay? They can't do that. The stadium is one size. That's it. We got to cram everybody in. And then Giants TV is the official TV streaming app, and it is available to Big Blue fans all year long. It's free on Apple TV, Roku, Amazon Fire, and the Giants mobile app. That'll do it for the promos. Let's go to the telephone calls.
Wait, real quick before you go to the first caller, I just want to say the official Giants Twitter account just tweeted a clip of the Jalen Hyatt one-handed catch.
Is that on Giants TV also, or is it just on Giants.com?
Right now, it's just on Giants.com. It will be in the Giants app when we're done with the show, and I can add it on there.
The Hyatt catch, a.k.a. the Michael Jackson catch.
Yes, go check it
out.
Go check it out on the Giants official Twitter account. It is a very impressive catch.
It is a sweet one-handed stab, and it is right now on Giants, at Giants on the Twitter, as you say.
Yes.
At New York Giants. At Giants. New York Giants Twitter account. All right. Let's go to the phones. We go to line 2. Cliff from New York. You are first on Big Blue Kickoff Live. Hello.
Hey, guys. Thanks for all the upbeat stuff. It's a great time of the year. There's more than one kind of honeymoon, isn't there?
Well, it's funny, Cliff. Every team around the NFL is just loaded with optimism at this time of year. And there's nothing wrong with that because, you've imported new players, whether it's through free agency, the draft, or trades, who you believe will make your team better. If you don't have some optimism at this time of the year, then something's wrong.
Some new coaches too.
Well, that too.
Yep. Well, I told Pearson I wanted to talk about the DL, but before that, I might have an idea about a breakout player. But the main thing was I caught Phil Simms right after the end of last season, long before the draft and the free agency, which together, by the way, I consider a dazzling haul by any of objective look. I mean, that's incredible what he was able to do when he finally had some momentum, some cap space, plus a draft position to take advantage of in more ways than one. But it wasn't the national telecast. It was some podcaster had Phil on, and Phil was saying that he was looking at the Giants to take a major leap forward next year, and this is right after we finished at 6-11. And I just don't know if anybody was aware of that or if they had any clue as to what he was referring to. I was hoping maybe it meant what we arrived at recently on the show here, that there's such a, you don't carry over like the 4-3 finish we had, which could have easily been 5-2, but you can carry over individual player development. And so I just wondered if you had any clue as how he might have meant that. It'd be great if we could ask him.
I don't want to jump into his head, Cliff, but I think I can make a safe guess. He likes the young nucleus of quality talent on this team. He really likes the coaching staff, the scouting staff, and the front office and the administration, and this is their third season, okay? He does believe in Daniel Jones, has always believed in Daniel Jones. I will tell you that unequivocally. That's not a guess. I know how strongly that Phil Simms believes in Daniel Jones, especially after he went through injuries early in his career. He knows that it's possible to bounce back and have a very, very quality NFL career. And then the other thing, I think, to be honest with you, I think Phil also looked at the injuries and said, my God, there were some very, very good players who got sidetracked last year that helped derail the season. And just if those guys are healthy and play up to their level, well, the Giants should be better before you even add all the other guys that they added.
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to speak for Phil, but my guess is that he would believe, or he does believe, that this Giants team is a lot closer or more like the 2022 version that we saw than last year's version. And as you mentioned, the injuries, I mean, I know you can't blame a season on injuries, but the Giants had just about as many injuries as a team that you can imagine at crucial positions as well. So yeah, that would be
I know he believes in the front office, the coaching staff, and Daniel Jones. That I can tell you unequivocally.
Yeah. It sounds like to me that the leap forward might surpass 2022.
Hey,
it could. Who knows?
Well, who wants to put a cap on it? Come on, Cliff. Keep reaching for the stars, baby.
Not me. I'm the guy that made a bold prediction last year, which I'm more proud of my breakout player for 2022 than I was for my record prediction last year. But anyway, before I get to the D-line, as long as you mentioned the breakout player, I would consider last year it was not unexpected that being healthy, that Wandale I considered to be breaking out. I mean, if you're exceeding 100 yards total in a game more than once, that's pretty broken out to me, and I would look for that from Hyatt.
Well, you just stole my guy.
Oh yeah.
I don't know what Matt had on his piece of paper because we did not compare notes on this, but I had wrote down Wandale Robinson first, and then I said, well, wait a minute. He had such a really solid second half of 2023. You may not be able to put him in that box, right? Maybe he disqualifies himself from being a breakout player because he did so well in November and December. So maybe we should just disqualify him. So, all right, I'm going to push him aside, and I got to go Jalen Hyatt, who, while he may not have great reception numbers, I do believe that his yards per catch, which last year was one of the top among the rookies in the National Football League, I think that's going to be a very gaudy number, and I wouldn't be surprised if he winds up first or second on the team in touchdown catches.
Not only was his yards per reception, towards the top of the rookies, but I'm pretty sure he was towards the top of the list for the entire NFL. Like you
Well,
see
it depends on where you put the qualifiers.
I was gonna say you'll see him like left off of a lot of those lists because
Right.
his reception numbers were
Didn't have enough.
lower than some of the other guys on the list. But if you just include everyone, and even if you want to put a cap
you can't do that. No.
but cap it at like maybe 20 receptions. So it's not someone that's like only literally 2 catches all season. But if you do that, you see that he is towards the top of the list.
For me, I think if you're going to do something like that, you got to have at least 2 catches per game. So it's got to be minimum 34 grabs. For me, got to be at least 34 grabs if you're going to start ranking somebody based on averages. Less than 2 catches a game doesn't do it for me. You got to have at least. Now, most of those lists will give at least 3. I think you have to have at least 3 catches a game for a lot of these lists to be able to qualify for an average ranking. But anyway, go ahead, Cliff. I'm sorry. Did you want to add?
First, I would just say I think it's entirely possible he falls short of the mid-30s just because of how much talent there is to spread it around and the way we've seen Kafka operate. When Hodgins had a great year in 2022, and then last year they hardly ever throw him the ball, but when he did, he was right there, and I could see that happening, But anyway, you were talking about the D-line, and, it just reminded me when we signed Burns, I was just, like, overwhelmed, and before I could, try to figure out how I felt about it, we signed Drew Lock, and that really lit me up because I knew that we didn't have to draft a quarterback anymore and didn't have to think of replacing Daniel in the draft. So I think now that I'm listening to you talk about Burns, I think I know why I was having so much trouble. I can't remember bringing in by trade or free agency a player of that caliber on my team. Can you? I can't.
Well, it depends on how you want to quantify Leonard Williams' time here. He did have 1 double-digit sack season while he was with the Giants. And when he came in, in the deal with the Jets, he had been a top 10 draft choice, had made some big money, and performed very well with the Giants. And again, 1 double-digit sack season. Didn't go to the Pro Bowl, but was a dynamite player. And I think even one year he made the top 100 in the NFL, right?
He did,
NFL Network's player voting.
Yeah.
So I think that qualifies. I think the Giants are hoping for even more from Brian Burns because of the deal they signed him to. I think they'd like him to be in the top 100 voting like every year of that new contract, quite frankly. Yeah. But I think you'd have to think about Leonard Williams when you think about quality players that have been brought in on defense.
For me, not on defense, but for me, the closest I can think of to like an impact player that the Giants acquired, a veteran, might be Plaxico, honestly. Plaxico.
Yeah, I was thinking
he was a free agent.
No, I know.
He wasn't
free
a trade.
Agent.
He said trade.
Oh, I
right?
just
Didn't you say trade, Cliff?
Acquisition.
Yeah, I said either one.
Oh, well, yeah. Plaxico was,
I mean,
Antonio Pierce. I mean, you want to go free agency. They've acquired a number of really. I mean, Kareem McKenzie, one of the greatest impact players in free agency the Giants ever had, and nobody really talks about him.
Well, that's what I'm getting at. You guys just went back to the championship season.
Sure.
So that's what I'm hoping this guy is. And I don't mean to slight Leonard. I didn't forget about him, but I think this exceeds at least the immediate impact, of the signing. It's like, whoa, this is a really huge talent. Yeah. And then just the one more thing. You're talking about the D-line, and you mentioned the edge guys and Dexter. Are we assuming that there's going to be some kind of rotation to find out who the three-technique tackle is going to be? It doesn't seem like that, I don't want to disrespect Nacho, but he's not a guy that ever really was a huge impact maker at that spot.
Here's where I'm going to answer you, Cliff. There's no question that there's going to be competition at that spot, okay? We know that guys like Riley and Phillips and Anderson, I mean, these guys are all, Davidson, these guys are all in the competition. No one's hiding that. I will tell you that during the open media sessions of practice, because I can't tell you about player deployment on practices that are closed to the outside, but on the open media sessions of practice, it's clear that Nacho is the lead guy right now next to Dexter Lawrence at the moment. in those practice sessions that are open to the media. That's as far as I can go. I will simply tell you that competition is absolutely going to be something to watch come August.
Yeah, I don't know if I would say that I expect it to be a, revolving door of guys or rotation, but I just think that is a position that the coaching staff probably is looking forward to training camp to let these guys compete and see, who steps up and earns that spot next to Dexter Lawrence.
Okay?
Yeah, well, then my final thing is anybody that can beat out Nacho would be pretty darn good, and that would be great. That might just put us over the top. Thanks,
Appreciate
guys.
it. Thank you, Cliff.
Thanks, Cliff.
I will say this. A couple of months ago, I started talking about speculation as to guys who might be able to compete for that job. And I mentioned the two guys who really had been forgotten about by everybody were Ryder Anderson and Boogie Basham. Well, in the open media sessions so far that we've seen, Ryder Anderson is definitely one of those guys involved in that competition. Boogie Basham is not. I remember him playing some three technique in college, thought that might be an avenue for him. To this point in the open sessions, that doesn't seem to be where they want to fit him in. But Ryder Anderson absolutely has an opportunity to inject himself into the rotation.
Yeah, I mean, Ryder he's looked good this spring. Again, it's a little, you got to take everything from the linemen on both sides of the ball with a bit of a grain of salt, but he's looked good. He's found himself in the backfield, I wouldn't say every day of practice, but almost every day. I think today he was at least pressuring a quarterback on a play. I don't know if it probably wouldn't have been a sack, but would have gotten close. And yeah, he could easily step up and earn that spot. The guy that I am most excited to see is Jordan Phillips. I was very excited when the Giants signed Jordan Phillips.
From the Bills.
From the Bills. It was kind of a under-the-radar signing. It was after the initial, first wave, even the first two waves of free agency came a little bit later. But Brian Daboll and Joe Schoen were both in Buffalo the year that Jordan Phillips had 9.5 sacks back in 2019. And since 2019, Phillips' biggest issue is he hasn't been able to stay healthy. Mm-hmm. In the 4 seasons after, he's played 9 games, 12 games, and then last year he played 14 games. And even in those limited seasons, he still had 2 sacks, 3 sacks, 1.5 sacks, 2.5 sacks. He can get after the quarterback, and he could be a very nice complement to the other 3 guys that we've already spoken about, Dexter, Kayvon, and Brian Burns. I wouldn't sleep on Jordan Phillips.
All right, we'll go back to the phone calls in just a second. Did you want to add to what we were talking about with Hyatt? Did you have another player as the breakout player, or were you on board with Hyatt?
No, I have a different player, and
go ahead.
We've already spoken about him, so I don't really have to say much. And, this might be considered a little bit of a cheat, but I am picking Brian Burns as my breakout player. And I know he's a 2-time Pro Bowler. Wait, you got to let me explain.
Okay. I would disqualify him, but
I know
okay.
he is a 2-time Pro Bowler. I know the Giants traded for him, signed him to this big lucrative contract. I get all that. I am picking him as my breakout player because I think he's going to take that next step into becoming one of the top edge rushers in the entire NFL, joining that upper echelon of guys, Myles Garrett, TJ Watt, Nick Bosa. I think he's not going to go on top of those guys, I don't think. But I think he's going to, at the end of the season,
you're cheating.
He's going to enter the conversation.
You're cheating.
To maybe, be on the verge of joining those guys. I think he's going to be an all-pro this year, something he has not done in his career.
So not just Pro Bowl. You're going to go Pro Bowl to all-pro.
I think Brian Burns is going to be an all-pro this season if he stays healthy.
All right. I still don't know if that qualifies as a breakout player,
okay.
but
I did pick a backup in case you said that.
But here's what I will give you. I will give you this. If he's all-pro, then he's absolutely a bona fide impact player.
Yeah.
Even more so than a Pro Bowler.
Yeah.
Because you can be a Pro Bowl player and kind of make it to the Pro Bowl as like the 7th string because everybody else dropped out and not necessarily be a mega impact player.
Yeah.
So I'll give you that. But if you have another breakout guy, I'd certainly take it.
Well, I had a feeling you might not, necessarily like me going Burns there. And I don't know if you like this either, but my backup choice was then Kayvon. And it's Pearson,
help me out here.
I get what Matt's saying.
we specified this as guys that are going to break out and do things that they have not yet done in their careers. Brian Burns has not been an All-Pro in his career.
That is true.
And he's one time reached double-digit sacks. He's
that is
gonna
true.
Easily clear double-digit sacks again. And I'm saying I think he's going to be an All-Pro as well.
Okay, but we're off of him already.
Healthy.
Now you threw Kayvon Thibodeau at me.
Yeah, because again, and I've been saying this, since we acquired Brian Burns, that I honestly think that if the two of them and Dexter Lawrence can stay healthy, those two especially are going to be considered maybe a top 3 edge rusher duo in the NFL.
Absolutely
I think both of them have the capability of reaching double-digit sacks this season.
I'm with you. I think both of them could be mega impact players as a duo, right? We've already talked about it. It's Spider-Man and Black Panther as self-proclaimed, right? Burns says he's Spider-Man, and Thibodeau says he's Black Panther. So that's great. But to me, just because they're going to be super impact players doesn't really make them breakout guys, because look where they're coming from.
I know.
They're already 5 steps up the ladder.
But what's the difference between a guy that's, had success and transforming into a guy that has, super success versus a guy that hasn't really played that well becoming a, good player? What's the difference? They're both, Jalen Hyatt taking a step up. I'm saying Brian Burns is going to take the next step up and join, the upper echelon of defensive players
Here's
in the
the
NFL.
example that I will give you. If Pinnock becomes a Pro Bowl safety, that's a breakout year for him. Because he's right now just a competent, solid NFL safety.
I mean,
he goes to the Pro Bowl. That's a breakout year.
I almost consider his season last year as a breakout year. He had barely gotten any defensive snaps.
Okay too.
And he turned into an everyday.
And that's okay too. But he's not on the same level as Burns and Thibodeau.
No, of course not. I'm obviously not saying he is.
Folks, if you'd like to give us a ring on this, it's fine. 201-939-4513. Otherwise, we'll take whatever kind of comments or questions you have here on Big Blue Kickoff Live. We've got about 20 minutes left to the program, and let's try to go back to the phones.
Fine. You want one last guy? We don't have to go into it.
You want to give me a third guy?
Yeah, because you didn't like my first two.
I like your first two. I just don't know if they qualify.
All right. Well, then this one will definitely qualify.
Okay.
Tyler Nubin. I think Tyler Nubin is going to end up being a starter, one of the starting safety, or to get significant playing time. I think he's going to have multiple takeaways throughout the season. And going into 2025, I think he's going to be voted as a team captain.
Okay.
All of that.
I absolutely could mark that one down in pen. I will give you that. No restrictions at all on Tyler Nubin.
We can put him down as my choice, but I'm writing down what I said about Burns and Kayvon as well.
And you're welcome to do so, because I hope you're actually right.
Of course. That would only mean good things.
I think it would be awesome if those two guys absolutely kick butt this year and become mega impact players, even more so than what they've been in the past. Okay. 201-939-4513. Abdul is on line 1. You're next on Big Blue Kickoff Live. Hello.
I called about the O-line, but I'll throw my 2 cents in about the breakout player.
Yes.
I think obvious as Wendell. I think Wendell will be impactful this year.
We have discussed him before, and again, whether or not you want to consider him disqualified or not is open to debate, but he's certainly a viable name.
But my sleeper is Theo Johnson. I think he will be impactful as a tight end. I think I've watched some of his tape. I think the quarterback he played with in Penn State didn't get him the ball enough, but he was wide open, and he has great hands. He's a big body. He can run routes. I think Theo Johnson will be impactful.
Well, no one's going to argue that one.
Yeah,
I think we've already
both agree with you on that one.
We got big thumbs up on Theo Johnson.
Okay. The reason I called is just a concerning pattern I've noticed about the Giants when it comes to their O-line play. We've complained for years about what's wrong with the Giants O-line.
Okay.
And I've noticed something that they've been doing is they continuously play players out of position. Okay? So let's look at this year. Arguably their best right tackle is now playing left guard. Their best left guard is playing right guard. They draft Zudu third round to play guard. He's now their swing tackle. It just seems like they continuously play players out of their position which makes them less of players.
Okay, here's I'm going to ask you to put the brakes on for just a second, then I'll let you finish.
Yeah.
The presumption that you're making is not entirely true. Illuminor and Runyon have been playing both guard spots throughout the course of the spring. Okay? So one day they're left, one guy's left. The next day, the next guy's playing left. So they're flip-flopping at this point, and it is only May, right? Am I right? It's May?
Yes.
It's still May. Just want to double-check this.
Last day of May.
So to say that they're playing them not in their spots, if you want to tell me that in September, you got a little beef behind it. You tell me that in May, you're not carrying any water with me. So that's number one. That's number one.
Okay.
Number two, as far as Ezeudu is concerned, yes, it does look like at the moment he is the sixth offensive lineman, Mr. Versatility, right now. Where he lands on the depth chart in September, again, I do not know. But at the moment, he looks like they're number 6. Would you agree?
Yeah.
Okay. So there's nothing wrong with that. And then the other item is, I believe you talked about the right tackle. The Giants believe in their heart of hearts, as does Carmen Brasillo, that Evan Neal is their best right tackle. You may not believe that, but if they do, then they're playing the guy who they think gives them the best chance, and that justifies that decision. So after I've now broken down most of your wall, you are entitled to continue.
Okay, I agree that it's early, but as the late great Yogi Berra says, it gets early, late, early, quick, whatever.
Okay.
So, but when it comes to the O-line, you need to be consistent and you need continuity.
Right.
And them flip-flopping left and right, and they've been doing it for years. As I said, it's early. We're still doing OTAs.
I'm going to make you feel better. I'm going to let you finish again. I'm going to interrupt one more time, and I'm going to make you feel better. Yeah. Carmen Brasillo said yesterday, in his mind, he would rather not rotate offensive linemen during the season, that the rotation right now is to determine the versatility that may be required upon guys getting injured, and that if he has his way, he would like to name a starting 5 offensive line by late in training camp, and those guys will be his 5. That's his preference. Okay. I don't know if you heard that yesterday.
I did not hear that, and that's music to my ears. And I am reserving judgment. As I said, this is early, so
okay.
I'm just joining the conversation. It's early, and it's it's June 1st tomorrow. I just hope they break that pattern. And from what you're telling me, they're starting to go that direction, which is perfect because I think that has led to their recent failures. And I think if they change direction and they solidify a starting 5 in training camp and they play players in position, I think that is the way to go, and I will be a happy man.
I prefer your thoughts than what we've seen in the past here. I actually am on board with you. I'd like to see it work out that way, and I think in a perfect world, that's the way they want it to be too.
Well, amen.
All right, you got it, man. Thank you. Appreciate the phone call. 201-939-4513. See, that's why I like those calls, because they give us a chance to explain how it really is happening here. And you folks out there, I know you're not here. You can't see. You don't know. We're just here to let you know. And so those kinds of calls are always good.
Yeah, no, I agree. And, I mean, you brought this up, but Carmen Brasillo literally talked yesterday about wanting versatility out of his linemen. And we've seen that. I mean, Brian Dable and Joe Shane have been preaching that from day one since they arrived in this building.
Because of injury, though. Again, understand that.
Of injury.
He said he's been in situations where they have rotated and shuffled linemen before, and he believes that the negative to that is you start hurting a player's confidence when you start doing that. So he would rather not.
But yeah, I'm talking about throughout the entire roster. Dable and Shane have been talking about wanting versatility,
totally
guys that can line up at multiple positions.
Yes,
because
especially on defense.
As we saw last year, guys get hurt, and you're gonna have guys filling in for other players. So if you're trying to get, in this situation, let's say your best 5 linemen out there, it might require, Ezeudu, if someone gets hurt, Ezeudu lining up at one of the tackle positions, even though he's probably naturally a guard.
Yeah.
So versatility, especially this time of year, having guys get reps and practice reps at multiple positions on the offensive line, that can only benefit the team come, week 1 or, more likely week 10, week 11 when guys start dropping.
Especially, and here's why I agree with the way they're doing it, because I've always preferred to have a starting 5. I've never been a big fan of the rotation, but I understood why the last couple of years they tried to, because they just didn't have a good enough starting 5 week in and week out to go with a standard set. So in those situations, I understood why they were doing it. They also had a bunch of young guys like Gates and guys like Lemieux, who they were trying to work in there and see what they could give them. And they didn't know exactly what Bredesen was going to be. So, I understood why. It wasn't the preferred way. But sometimes you have to go with the hand you're dealt. And so they had to, out of necessity. I don't think they want to do that now. That's not the preference. But here's what I would say. If you want to prepare guys for having to be plugged in because of emergency injury situations, this is the time to start shuffling the deck. This is the time to roll the dice and move them around. Because as Carmen Brasillo said, by late in training camp, he wants his starting 5 solidified. Well, you know what that means? That means during the last couple of weeks of camp, into that preseason, you're going to want that starting 5 working together as much as possible so that you can isolate and say, yeah, you know what? These guys are my starting 5. You would want to do very little juggling with those guys then. Do it now. Juggle now. Reduce the juggling when you get to mid-August, because by then you'd like to be honing in and reducing the amount of variables to get that starting 5. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah, I 100% agree with you.
All right. NFC East, breakout player for each team. Let's go to the Dallas Cowboys since they are a D. And alphabetically speaking, after the Giants, they are next up. I've got tight end Jake Ferguson in his second season. Now, here's where you could zap me if you like. 71 catches for 761 yards and 5 touchdowns. I think Ferguson's going to be good for almost 90 grabs, 1,000 yards, and maybe even 8 or 9 touchdowns. I think he will definitely blow those numbers away. Now, if you want to tell me you think he's already established with those numbers, I'm not going to fight you on it because I just got you on the same method or the same methodology 10 minutes ago. So I won't fight you on it. But that would be my guy because I think Jake Ferguson has a real opportunity to become a Pro Bowl tight end, and right now he's not.
I mean, I agree with you. I had Ferguson down as one of the Cowboys players listed, but I do just want to say his numbers were more than Wan'Dell's last year, and you said Wan'Dell wouldn't really qualify as a breakout.
I discussed that Wan'Dell was my first choice and then backed out.
Yeah,
because of his strong second half.
So you think Ferguson's going to go from a good player to a Pro Bowler?
And that's kind of like the philosophy you were trying to give me with the Pro Bowlers going to all NFL.
Yes.
So
I'm not going to knock you because I agree with you on Ferguson.
But you could throw it back at me now.
No,
I'm okay.
I don't want to throw it back.
But
at
I'm
you,
okay
Paul.
with that.
I know you are, but no, I agree with you. I agree with you on Ferguson. I wrote down one or two other guys in case because I had a feeling that we might agree on Ferguson. The other two guys I mentioned, Tyler Smith, the guard, who, again, has been solid. This is his third year in the NFL. He allowed 6 sacks as a rookie. Last year, only allowed 1 sack, 17 total pressures.
Good player.
Those are great numbers for a guard. Dallas's offensive line obviously took a big hit when they lost Tyron Smith. Mm-hmm. Obviously, that's a tackle, a different position. But I think Tyler Smith could step up and become the leader
of that line. And that's fair.
And again,
I thought about him. I'm not going to lie.
Yeah.
But I went with Ferguson. He was someone who I kind of went through my head on, and so that's a really good pick.
Yeah. I mean, again, Ferguson was my first choice, but I do think Smith. And this last guy, I think actually would have been better to pick as my player on Wednesday.
Okay.
Instead of necessarily a breakout player, but Eric Kendricks.
Okay.
As the comeback, more so as the comeback player. He hasn't been great in recent seasons.
I think he's on the down.
Yeah, he obviously had a lot of success earlier in his career. I just think that he's reuniting with Mike Zimmer, who was his head coach in Minnesota, now is the Cowboys defensive coordinator. I think if there's anyone that's going to be able to sort of squeeze the last bit of juice out of that orange, it'll be Mike Zimmer. And obviously the Cowboys lost Leighton Vander Esch. They had a hole in the middle of the defense, and I think Kendricks has the potential to really step up and solidify the middle of the Cowboys defense.
All right, 201-939-4513 is our phone number. Lines are open. We got a few minutes, maybe 10 minutes left on the show. We'll be very happy to take your phone calls. Quickly, Philadelphia, C.J. Uzomah, tight end. 9 years in the league. Last year with the Jets, 8 catches for 58 yards and only 1 touchdown. Now, I get it. In Cincinnati, before he got to Gangrene, he had 2 years with more than 40 catches and 400 yards. So he was an accomplished player. Not a star, but an accomplished player. I have a feeling he's going to go back to at least those numbers with Philadelphia as, you know, in a semblance of what he did when he was with the Bengals. Because with the Jets last year, he did nothing.
Yeah. No, that is an interesting selection. The tight end 2.
Yes, he is.
Because they do have Dallas Goedert.
Correct.
There still.
Correct.
Interesting.
And they do use a lot of double tight ends.
Yeah, no, that is definitely true. I mean, we saw Jack Stoll, who's now obviously with the Giants, on the field a lot, more so as a blocking tight end. But I agree, Uzomah could get a decent amount of receptions this year. Just based on our previous conversation, I feel like you might not like my
it has
selection.
nothing to do with me liking it. It has to do with, is the guy disqualified?
You might think that this guy disqualified.
Who's that?
And I mentioned it on Wednesday.
Don't give me Saquon Barkley.
I was talking about my comeback / whatever you want to call it. Wednesday I talk about Jordan Davis. Today I'm going to talk about the guy lining up right next to him, and Jalen Carter.
I don't have a problem with that.
The reason I thought you might say he's not qualified is because he had a stellar rookie season last year.
Yes, he did.
He was very good. Finished second in defensive rookie of the year. 6 sacks, almost 49 pressures according to PFF. I just think that, especially with Fletcher Cox retired now, which we briefly talked about Wednesday, with Vic Fangio now as the defensive coordinator, and we've seen Fangio have a lot of success in helping groom some young interior or defensive tackles and help them really take the next step in their career, whether it's Christian Wilkins with the Dolphins, Akeem Hicks with the Bears going way back. I think Carter is going to take a big step in his development. I think he, could easily be a Pro Bowler this year. It might be tough for him to the top 6 sacks, because that, for an interior lineman, 6 sacks is a pretty solid number, unless you're, Aaron Donald.
Well, if he becomes the dominant impact force on that defensive line, then he absolutely qualifies.
Yeah.
Because last year he was just a really good rookie.
Yeah. I think he's going to, this year, become just a really good defensive tackle. No one's even going to think, oh, this guy's only in his second year. They're going to be like, oh, this guy, already in top 10 defensive tackles in the NFL.
All right, let's go back to the phones real quick, and then we'll get to our Washington Commander.
Great.
Line 1, Zimmer in Jersey City. You're next on Big Blue Kickoff Live. Hello.
Hi.
Hi. What would you like to ask us today?
I would like... My bad, I just dropped my phone.
That's all right. Butterfingers. As long as you recovered your own fumble, the coach isn't going to dock you. No fines for you. Go ahead.
So I just want to say I've been a Giants fan for all my life. And
I got a feeling that hasn't been too long. but go ahead.
And I just want to say that we're going to the Super Bowl all the year this year. We have the best wide receivers ever. I love the Giants. I hate the Dallas Cowboys. I hate the Eagles.
Okay.
Saquon's a traitor.
Okay. Well, is there anything else?
We're going to the Super Bowl.
Okay. Well, thank you so much for the phone call.
Thank you, Zimmer.
I
like the confidence.
Well, he's obviously a youngster, and he hasn't been tainted by too many rough seasons in recent memory. And that may be why.
It's good on him.
That's the good news. If you haven't been tainted by some really bad seasons, you can look at things a little more objectively. But the slew of bad seasons over the last decade that this team has had tends to accumulate and leave a lot of scars on people. And that's why a lot of frustrated fans are 10 times more frustrated than they would otherwise be.
Yeah, agree with you.
Washington Commanders. You want to go first this time? I should let you go first.
No,
Go ahead.
you go first.
Breakout player.
You go first.
All right. My breakout player for the Washington Commanders is going to be Luke McCaffrey, the rookie, third-round pick, wide receiver. He's going to be the lead slot guy for their passing attack. Don't necessarily know, quite frankly, what Jaden Daniels will do in his rookie season, but let's assume that either he or Marcus Mariota actually do throw the ball around a lot because, quite frankly, I know Austin Eckler is there. I don't know how healthy he's going to be. I don't know how much they're really going to rely on the run game. So I'm going to say that Luke McCaffrey has a really good season for them out of the slot. We know what Terry McLaurin is, Terrible Terry, who has really done great things against the Giants over the years. I'm not as big a fan of Dynami Brown or Jahan Dotson. So I think McCaffrey could have a really strong rookie season for them.
Yeah, I don't disagree. He's going to have, obviously, a lot of competition for targets, but so far the reviews I've seen of him in the first couple weeks of spring practices,
he's a baller.
Seen some highlights. I mean, he's
a baller.
He's looked good out there. It's that last name.
What do you like?
I couldn't decide between a couple of guys,
Mm-hmm.
so I'm narrow it down and only speak briefly. But there's 3 guys.
Okay, breakout player, Washington Commanders. Matt's under the spotlight. What do you got?
All right. Number 1, I'm going with one of their free agent acquisitions, Dorrance Armstrong.
Okay.
I thought he had a lot of success for the Cowboys the last couple seasons.
He did.
He had 3 sacks in his first 3 seasons total. And then Dan Quinn got to Dallas, and he had sacks seasons of 5, 8.5, and 7.5 sacks. Dan Quinn is obviously now the head coach in Washington, and Dorrance Armstrong followed him there, or Dan Quinn brought him there as one of their free agent signings. I think with the guys that they also have on the interior defensive line between Allen, Payne, and the rookie Johnny Newton, I think that Dorrance Armstrong is going to get a lot of one-on-one matchups and could push or potentially reach double-digit sacks for the first time in his career.
That's a really good pick. Why don't you just stop there? Because that's a really good pick.
Well, because there were 2 other guys.
Okay.
That would be my first pick. So I spoke about him first. But then just real quick, Sam Cosmi, the guard, he's been good already. Last year, he really took a big step and was one of the top, I would say probably one of the top guards, at least according to PFF,
He's a good player
in the league. I think he's just going to benefit from having a little bit of stability at the 2 positions next to him, because the Commanders went out and signed Andrew Wiley to play right tackle for the Chiefs, and then Tyler Biadasz from the Cowboys,
who really
at center.
underachieved with the Cowboys.
Yes, but I just compared to what the Commanders had last year.
I felt so bad for
offensive
Nick
line.
Gates. Nick Gates lost his job there. He did not perform very well, and they just decided that wasn't going to work out.
Yeah, so his Cosmi, just because I think the stability around him is going to help him take potentially even a bigger leap. And then the last guy, really quick, another acquisition, a signing, Frankie Louvu, the linebacker, who really I think had somewhat of a breakout season last year for the Carolina Panthers. It's just that team was so bad that no one really paid attention to anything going on in Carolina.
This is true.
And I know you don't necessarily like some of the PFF grades, and I agree with you a lot of the time, but it comes from some fact at least, and they had him as one of the best blitzing linebackers in the entire NFL last year, just in terms of pass rushing. So that's just another guy in Dan Quinn's system. I mean, we've seen Dan Quinn's defenses really, become elite with the Cowboys.
Well, he's really good. He's a terrific defensive coordinator
with the Seahawks. And I just thought that was one of the most underrated offseason moves or free agent signings of any team across the league this year was Frankie Louvu.
You've presented a good case for all 3 players. I commend you.
Thank you.
No disqualifications there.
Great
At
to
least
hear.
I don't think so.
All right. Pearson, any disqualifications?
Pearson says thumbs up too.
All right.
All right, folks, that'll do it for this edition of Big Blue Kickoff Live. We have had another fun week here at the Giants facility. We are live every weekday from 12:30 p.m. Eastern Time till 1:30 in the afternoon. Jot down the phone number. Give us a call, 201-939-4513. He is Matt Citak on Twitter. I am at GiantsWFAN on Twitter, or you could always go hashtag GiantsChat on Twitter if you want to reach out to us after the program is over. That'll do it for today's edition of Big Blue Kickoff Live, presented by Cadillac, the official luxury vehicle of the New York Football Giants. Have a good weekend. We'll see you next time, everybody.